Chosen one, this moment is not a coincidence. Your soul was drawn to this video because the heavens whispered the same message to you 7 times. The number 1111 didn't appear before your eyes for nothing, and the prayers of 33 prophets did not fall upon you by chance. You are one of the 144,000 chosen, and your presence here is a divine sign. This message was sent to awaken the secret that has been resting within your heart. What you are about to hear are not just words, but divine vibrations that will sink deep into your soul. If these words are touching you, leave your heart in the comments so the heavens can witness your testimony. Because when you write, another soul will awaken. Now prepare yourself, for this video will illuminate your path. Those who recognize the signs of God know that nothing is random. That's why your being here is already a miracle. And furious debate broke out behind closed doors, with your name at the center of every angry syllable, while you were traveling your route with unwavering dignity, chosen one. You will be completely shocked by what was mentioned, since it exposes the extent of the deception that has been planned around your life. Not quite a co-worker, but close enough to watch your every move, there's someone in your orbit. Someone who has been using you as the unintentional subject of a complex sociological experiment. This person has spent a great deal of time analyzing your routines, believing that they have cracked the code of your success and pinpointed the exact pressure points that would cause your meticulously built world to collapse. However, those who are picked don't follow blueprints that are understandable to the average person. And this person is going to lose everything that was built in the shadows because of that basic misunderstanding. It is the Creator's fingers, not yours, that will soon slam shut the surgically precise trap. And future seasons and beyond will be reverberated by the sound of these ideas collapsing. These so-called strategy gatherings, which you would instantly identify as gossip councils disguised in business attire, have been hosted by this mastermind of mayhem. Imagine small parties where coffee is shared as freely as opinions, where your decisions become the entertainment of the night, and where future predictions become weighted with prophecies. Every meeting was a meticulously planned performance meant to establish this individual as the insider who actually knows the chess game that everyone else is only watching. For the captive audience, vivid images have been painted depicting the inevitable moment when your self-confidence would crumble, when your standards would be too strict for practical use, and when your refusal to compromise would ultimately cut you off from opportunities that less fortunate people would seize without hesitation. The remarks stated held the authority of someone who had researched your flaws until forecasting your doom seemed achievable with mathematical precision. The norms of engagement were entirely rewritten as you underwent an interior metamorphosis while exterior behaviors were being examined. You weren't withdrawing from the outside world during your recent period of selective solitude. From a place at the shallow end of consciousness, it was preparation for a power that was incomprehensible. The puppet master saw what appeared to be the ideal chance to test predictions about your predictability. It was discovered that you were going to meet someone extraordinary. Someone whose energy signature matched frequencies you've been calling in through your spiritual practice. This relationship had the capacity to transform every facet of your life and offer the collaboration that would transform your already powerful position into something that could completely transform entire sectors. In warped logic, however, your happiness poses a danger to the social ecosystem's meticulously preserved equilibrium. The belief grew that your promotion would somehow lower your status in the organization, that your happiness would cast a shadow over accomplishments, and that your real success would reveal the phoniness of fabricated influence. Thus, preparations for an intervention masquerading as an introduction started. The scheme created was devilish in its cunning and astounding in its hubris. By guiding you away from this sincere relationship and towards someone better suited for the story, positioning took place as the kind matchmaker who would spare you from making a disastrous error. The substitute in question wasn't merely insufficient. It was deliberately picked to darken your light, to produce drama rather than harmony, to amuse gossip councils rather than uplift your soul. Something amazing occurred when this meticulously prepared substitute eventually came into your orbit, revealing the entire extent of your metamorphosis. Like a spiritual fire alarm, the intuitive warning system you had been cultivating through prolonged introspection went off, sending signals so urgent and obvious that to ignore them would have required a total violation of your true self. The offer was presented in just the right way to entice someone they had miscalculated to be predictable and in need of outside approval. The version of you they believed they understood ought to have been seductive. The one who would put other people's approval ahead of inner insight, instant gratification ahead of long-term fulfillment, and social acceptance ahead of spiritual alignment. However, compared to the you they had been studying from a distance, the you who inspected their dazzling trap was functioning from an entirely other plane of consciousness. You saw more than the surface-level presentation that had captivated their focus groups of amateur psychologists when you looked at their carefully chosen opportunity. Underneath, you saw the subtle vibrations and energetic signature that spoke of commerce rather than connection, of convenience rather than chemistry, of someone who would see your heart as a stepping stone rather than a haven. Your response wasn't merely rejection. After acknowledgement, prompt precautionary action was taken. Your decision's swiftness and finality rocked their entire operation since it exposed something they hadn't factored into their calculations. When the soul communicates with perfect clarity, those who are chosen don't deliberate. There was no hesitancy, no second-guessing, no need to learn more or consult with other people. You just answered with a kind of decisive power that reshapes reality around its manifestation after realizing the truth of what was being delivered. Unprecedentedly, the puppet master was forced to explain to their enthusiastic audience why their meticulously planned ending had not come to pass so gloriously. During what was intended to be a celebration meeting, a gathering where they would show off how expertly they had planned your collapse and position themselves as the astute prophet who had anticipated it, the pressure started to grow. Instead, they found themselves facing increasingly uncomfortable inquiries from people who had put social capital in their projections and now sought answers for why reality had refused to cooperate with their imaginations. The bait looked so well suited to your situation. Why didn't you fall for it? How did you spot lies that had deceived those they thought were far more intelligent than you? Who has the wisdom to turn down possibilities that others would go to great lengths for? Like pressure cracks in a dam that was never intended to hold the force of sincere curiosity combined with mounting skepticism, the questions kept coming. Then the moment arrived that turns this tale from a rumor into the gospel. The realization that, when you fully understand its consequences, will make your nerves tingle. In the midst of a particularly savage analysis of your decisions, one of their most loyal confidants, someone who had been nodding along with their character assassination for months, had their own epiphany. In the midst of the planned conversation, this individual rose to the occasion and spoke the words that would blow up their entire social structure. What precisely are you saying about each of us when we leave these meetings if this is how you evaluate and assess someone who isn't even present to defend themselves? The ensuing quiet was the sort that comes before revolutions and avalanches. The moment when everyone realizes at once that they have been dancing while taking in the scenery on the edge of a cliff. The rapid and complete change in power dynamics that followed was nothing short of astonishing. It dawned on everyone in the room that they had not been involved in advanced social analysis. They had been unintentional actors in another manipulative theater. Every moment of trust they had given, every vulnerability they had exposed, and every confidence they had shared were now exposed as possible targets for character assassinations in the future. The explosive dispute that erupted wasn't just about you anymore. It dealt with a basic breach of trust that happens when someone gathers private information under the guise of friendship and support, much like a weapons stockpile. It was a torrential stream of righteous wrath as voices were raised, accusations flew like arrows finding their marks, and years of suppressed intuitions about this person's actual nature came flooding out. When they defended their matchmaking instincts, they disclosed details about their selected candidate that made it clear why your spiritual alarm system had gone off so quickly. It was discovered that the individual they had positioned as your ideal match had a tendency to treat relationships like business dealings, to maintain several romantic options while guaranteeing exclusivity to each, and to use emotional manipulation to coerce opportunities and resources from partners who thought they were creating something real together. Each read. In the middle of the day, the warning sign your intuition had picked up suddenly became visible for everyone to examine and debate. The lovely irony wasn't lost on anyone present. Instead, the puppet master's desperate attempt to show off their better knowledge of human nature had shown how completely ignorant they were to the character defects that render someone unfit for genuine connection. They had selected your alleged perfect match using standards that showed nothing about your principles and everything about theirs. Not only was the alternative they had attempted to guide you toward dishonest and emotionally unavailable, they deliberately participated in scams that anyone stupid enough to get caught up in them would have faced legal and professional ramifications. Your heart had been spared disappointment by your refusal to participate. Your entire life had been protected from the kind of contamination that ruins careers and ruins reputations. Your soul somehow detected through channels that rational analysis couldn't explain, and the spiritual guidance system that had warned you away from their trap had been working with access to knowledge that your conscious mind couldn't have had. Everyone in the room realized the full extent of what they had avoided, and the puppet master was confronted with an experience they had never had before. There were people in the room who realized that their apparent greater knowledge was actually profound blindness disguised in fancy words. After years of meticulous self-promotion, their reputation for strategic thinking and character evaluation was destroyed in the course of one conversation. This cosmic drama's resolution is presented with the kind of poetic justice that reaffirms belief in the harmony of the universe. The puppet master's web of rumors and manipulation that he had built around your life fell apart, leaving them alone with the fallout from their decisions, while you were spared the mayhem they had attempted to inflict in your name. However, their demise isn't the most exquisite part of this ending. As the universe hurried to fill the void that their manipulation had attempted to poison, that's what started to appear in your life. A magnetic field that started drawing chances and connections that matched your true frequency rather than their skewed understanding of your requirements was produced by your refusal to lower your standards and your dedication to following your inner guidance. The month they had planned to bring you down turned out to be the one when you were elevated to new heights of respect and recognition. People in your professional network started contacting you with real prospects after hearing about your astute decision to stay out of situations that would have damaged rather than improved your reputation. You were seen as someone deserving of trust and cooperation because of your capacity to remain composed and wise under duress. More importantly, it was during this same time that the genuine connection you had been seeking through your spiritual practice started to materialize, coming through organic synchronicity instead of forced introduction. This person resonated with frequencies that felt like returning home after a long voyage through unfamiliar land, yet they carried none of the warning signs that had sent off your instinctive alarm system. As natural consequences unfolded and toxic elements either withdrew themselves or were removed by institutions that prioritize integrity above politics, the workplace that had been momentarily tainted by rumors and behind-the-scenes manipulation started to purge itself. Your decision to continue being a professional while others played games put you in a prime position to gain from these developments. You started to realize something amazing about yourself when you looked back at the complex plan that had been put together around your decisions, how easily you had identified and steered clear of several levels of deceit, and how chaos broke out when you just stood by your truth. This encounter demonstrated that you had become something much more powerful than a person who occasionally makes wise decisions as a result of your recent spiritual growth. You had developed into a person whose unwillingness to play minor games provides room for bigger possibilities to arise, whose dedication to the truth causes ripples that reveal hidden deceptions, and whose very presence in real alignment appends systems of manipulation and control. Someone disclosed that the puppet master had been fabricating stories about your financial circumstances and how your selective approach to opportunities showed standards of desperation. You had been portrayed as someone whose spiritual activities were ways of escaping from hard reality and whose assurance was only a front for uneasiness. The truth of these charges struck like lightning, as a number of individuals in the room became acutely aware of how they unconsciously propagated these stories within their own social circles, unknowingly spreading poison that was not acknowledged as harmful. Through social events, professional networks, and casual conversations, the puppet master's influence had spread like a virus, affecting how people perceived you in ways that would have required a great deal of effort to reverse if you had been on the defense. While development is underway, because of fabricated stories about your alleged hardships, you were expanding at a rate never seen before in any of the alleged troubled areas. You weren't in dire straits financially. In order to maximize independence and minimize commitment to systems that deplete real power, it was purposefully simplified. You weren't desperate if you chose your opportunities carefully. Most people strive for mastery of discernment throughout their lives. The spiritual exercises that were derided as escapist were, in fact, the very means by which you were able to see manipulations clearly and react with strength rather than weakness. Every meditation session that was written off as a way to escape reality was actually training you for times like these, when your biggest tactical advantage is the capacity to maintain your composure as mayhem breaks out all around you. Another individual in the room, encouraged by the spirit of candor, disclosed that the puppet master had been gathering details about your private life from people you both knew, creating thorough profiles of your inclinations, habits, and weaknesses. In order to forecast and affect your future decisions with scientific accuracy, your existence had been viewed as a research project that examined your reactions to different stimuli. The extent of this surveillance was horrifying in its infringement of fundamental human rights and astounding in its meticulousness. There was information regarding private discussions, private decisions, and even spiritual experiences that were only discussed with your closest confidants. Someone working from a less secure base would have been devastated by the way this knowledge has been turned into a thorough psychological manipulation technique. However, those that are chosen don't function on shaky foundations that can be shattered by outside forces. And for that reason, the entire intelligence gathering process was a pointless endeavor. When you first arrived at this new stage of spiritual growth, no amount of information about your previous decisions could foretell how you would react. Plans for a person you had progressed past during your time of introspection were being used to try to control someone who didn't exist. When someone showed concrete proof of the puppet master's collaboration with a romantic alternative that had been directed toward you, it was the most damaging discovery. Text messages, voice recordings, and thorough plans outlining how you would be approached, what you would say, and how you would present yourself to make the most impression on someone who fits your purported psychological profile. The degree of forethought was astounding, turning what you had thought was just bad judgment into something that was almost deliberate deception. These exchanges exposed the actual level of planning that went into what was meant to seem like organic attraction and sincere desire. Every gesture, every remark, and every purportedly spontaneous moment of the approach had been planned out beforehand. It wasn't incompatibility that your spiritual alarm system had picked up. At a level so advanced that most humans would never have been able to see through the masquerade, it had recognized artificiality masquerading as authenticity. Your interests, values, communication style, and apparent vulnerabilities had all been thoroughly explained to the puppet master's chosen candidate, who had created a performance that was so precisely suited to your purported preferences that it should have been impossible for someone functioning at normal levels of consciousness to resist. In essence, a romantic Trojan horse that is gorgeous on the outside but has everything needed to enter and ultimately ruin your peace of mind had been created. Everyone in the room gasped when passages from these communications were read aloud to them, realizing how thoroughly genuine human connection had been twisted into a calculated ploy. Your romantic decisions weren't the only thing the puppet master had attempted to influence. An intricate psychological warfare campaign had been planned in order to take advantage of what were thought to be your most fundamental wants for understanding and connection. Every assumption made on what would attract you, every prediction regarding your reactions, and every calculation regarding your emotional triggers showed that someone had examined your outward habits while remaining utterly unaware of your spiritual depth. A basic misinterpretation of your character had served as the foundation for the entire plan. The romantic puppet was created to appeal to someone who would compromise authenticity for the appearance of success in love, someone whose self-worth rested on being selected by others, and someone who was looking for outside affirmation. However, you had progressed past the need for outside approval, past the wish to be selected by someone who couldn't see your value without coercion, and beyond the readiness to sacrifice your spiritual integrity for the comfort of typical dynamics of relationships. Something lovely occurred as these communications were shared with the room, demonstrating the ability of truth to turn even the most toxic circumstances into chances for group awakening. People started talking about their personal experiences of feeling controlled by this individual, their own moments when they felt that interactions and conversations were being guided toward preset goals rather than being genuinely motivated by interest and concern. There was a trend toward people who saw relationships like a game of chess, who gathered personal data like a strategist gathering intelligence, and who saw emotional intimacy as a means of obtaining an advantage rather than a sacred space for vulnerability and development. You weren't the only person the puppet master had chosen to manipulate. Human connection had been treated as a resource to be mined rather than a gift to be treasured, and this was how the operation had been going with everyone in the orbit. One particularly potent instance was when someone talked about feeling as though there was always testing going on, that every discussion was an examination in which words were examined for potential vulnerabilities that could be used later. Another individual disclosed that they had ceased discussing personal issues after realizing that vulnerability was being listed rather than truly accepted with empathy and assistance. The room started to realize that what had been observed in your case wasn't a singular occurrence, but rather a pattern of conduct that had been subtly influencing each of them and was just now starting to be identified. Not only had your refusal to participate in the manipulation kept you safe, under the pretense of friendship and social connection, it has revealed a system of emotional exploitation. A number of individuals experienced medical illnesses as a result of the complete and stunning betrayal of their trust, which made them realize how much their trust had been used against them. Selected 1. Messages like these are accessible to all, but few will take advantage of their full potential. That's what we're here to help you with. Zoom is now used for the weekly Chosen Ones group calls, and you've been waiting all your life for this moment. These gatherings are actual power vortices where fates are shaped and selected individuals merge their minds to produce something that is impossible to exist separately. Everything changes at this point. You enter your brilliance at this point. A portal opens once a week, but only for those who dare to enter. Members of the Obsidian Inner Order at the Watcher level can participate in these life-changing experiences and feel the energy flow through their whole body. Participants in our most recent meeting were astounded to learn that the enormous pyramids of Giza were actually highly advanced ancient power plants and that the layout of Washington, D.C. exactly matched the Kabbalistic tree of life. Members of the Star Chamber have unrestricted access to the entire recorded archive, which is a wealth of knowledge that increases in value every week. This is the moment that defines you. There is nowhere else to find the information, the connection, and the power that come through these calls. Become a member of the Obsidian Inner Order immediately. The description contains a link. Your presence is not only appreciated, but also required while there are still a few Star Chamber spots available. The call has been ringing in your soul. Will you answer it? Now is the moment. As people realized the ramifications of having their private thoughts and conversations recorded by someone who had already shown a willingness to use personal information as artillery, the vibe in the room changed from anger to something that was almost terrifying. It wasn't only that the puppet master had been gathering information about you. An extensive collection of blackmail materials that might ruin relationships and reputations across the social network had been built. The beauty of this moment lay not just in exposing these strategies, but also in witnessing how swiftly, after realizing what was being dealt with, people came together to face a shared threat. When everyone saw how systematically betrayal had happened for everyone, the artificial divisions that had been painstakingly constructed to keep everyone focused on criticizing you rather than looking at the manipulator vanished in an instant. What came next was the most complete social dismantling you can think of. Everyone in the room started to share stories about dubious encounters, odd requests for private information, and talks that had felt slightly off but had been written off as overanalyzing. As individuals correlated patterns they had individually experienced to paint a complete picture of a person who viewed interpersonal interactions as a psychological experimental lab, the puppet master's entire operation came apart. Not only was the volume of the dispute that erupted tremendous, it was revolutionary because it completely reformed societal dynamics that had been meticulously crafted over long stretches of time. Perceptions changed, alliances changed, and the puppet master found himself completely alone as the very network that had been established to manipulate others turned against the creator in the wrath of those who had realized that their position was never that of friends or co-workers, but rather that of subjects in a continuous manipulation experiment. The most fulfilling feature of this social earthquake was observing how, as the erected barriers were taken down, everyone instinctively gravitated toward genuine connection. For the first time in recent memory, people who had been set against one another by carefully controlled information started to have real conversations. Learning that the person who profited from keeping everyone distrustful and divided had created their alleged issues. Your name started to come up in these discussions as an example of someone who had somehow recognized the danger that everyone else had overlooked, rather than as a topic for discussion or condemnation. People began looking back on their encounters with you and seeing that what had been perceived as a lack of interest or conceit had really been spiritual discernment shielding you from impurities that would have obscured your vision. You fully assert your role as the author of your own destiny at the end of the story, which started with someone else attempting to write your story, but you now have a better knowledge of what that authorship truly entails. By sending signals through realms of reality that most people never see, every decision you make from actual alignment attracts what would maximize your power and repels what would weaken it. The heated dispute that broke out over you wasn't actually about you. It dealt with the conflict between real power and fake influence, between the old paradigm of control and the new consciousness that defies control, between cunning manipulation and true wisdom. They never took you as a victim. They learned from you. They also discovered that those who are chosen do not dance to music from this world. As this chapter comes to an end and other ones are about to begin, you take with you the deep realization that your gut feelings are not recommendations to be taken into account. They are directives from your higher self that you should follow without question. Lowering your standards for convenience is not acceptable. They act as filters to make sure that only deserving people can access your energy. It's not stubbornness to overcome your resistance to compromise. It is wisdom that shields you from relationships and chances that might lessen rather than enhance your divine essence. The universe has been observing how you respond to stress, how you uphold your moral character when under attack, and how you choose the truth over comfort, even when standing up to a chorus of voices singing alluring lies calls for you to do so. These notes serve as the guide for blessings that are now en route to your door. Every chosen person who recalls their own self is surrounded by a magnetic field of authentic power. Remember that this is how things always operate for folks like us as you work through this realization tonight about the turmoil that whirled around you while you walked in calm. By just living in our truth, We inspire either elevation or destruction, eliciting reactions we never sought and reactions we never intended as we go through the world. Though they are certain they can control our stories, the puppet masters will always come out of the shadows, but they never take into consideration the fact that the ones they have chosen don't react to manipulation. Truth elicits a response from us. The dispute is resolved. The smoke has been extinguished. And you are triumphant not because you battled, but rather because you chose not to participate in a conflict that was never yours in the first place. The tremors that started this story have subsided and can now bear the weight of opportunities that are in line with your highest good, real connections, and success that is legitimate. Opportunities await you in the future that respect rather than contradict your actual nature. If this message reached you, remember, nothing in your life is by chance. The same hand that guided you here will continue to guide you forward. The number 777 is the seal of completion, and today a cycle in your life has shifted into something new. Chosen one, share your thoughts in the comments, for your words may be the very spark that awakens another soul. Like this video so the light can travel further, and subscribe to join this gathering of the chosen. Until the next message, walk with faith, walk with courage, and never forget, heaven is watching over you.